not legislation.
That's just to make, to assign committee members.
No,
But
it's
it's-
something that you should. There was an email, there was something in there that said, that addressed what this education was.
So the way it reads is the mayor, selects the members of the committees and the council approves. So, I don't think there's anything that speaks specifically about filling vacancies, but probably should be.
It doesn't say we can't.
Yeah.
Until we-
I haven't checked lately, that was up there last
So you can still talk. Whatever it is, you still use that. We can't talk at all. Not enough to close.
Look at it while you can. Thank you kindly, everyone.
To order, Alderman Payone is present. Alderwoman Finlayson is still out of state. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and we have a motion to amend the agenda, and that is to take up a now urgently needed transfer from the contingency fund to the special elections contract services fund of $50,000.
I would second the motion. Second the motion to
You're offering
amend.
it, I'm not,
Oh.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm offering it.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of recommending, we recommend this to the council, or are we approving it? I never can keep GTs and DAs.
When you transfer from the contingency account, it is required to have finance committee's review, and it is required to be voted on by the
Right,
entire council.
okay. So Finance Committee is voting favorably on this transfer and recommending so to the City Council. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And by the way, the agenda is amended as,
And congratulations to our colleague while we're at it, Shanika.
yes, Shanika, yes. I hope it's congratulations, but yes. All right.
Gotta be easier than this.
Do you have a pen? I can sign this. Business before the committee. We'll skip the minutes and we'll go to Department of Public Works. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, usually we ask for a brief overview. I would point out to my colleagues that we have an addition to the budget book, which is the measures of performance. Where did I put that already? Oh, my God. For Public Works. Are there some general comments that you would like to make to us, Director Gerald?
Sure, yeah. David Gerald, Director of Public Works. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's happened in Public Works over the last year and what we look forward to over the coming year with the new budget. So the new water treatment plant now has been in operation for 2 years and is producing good water, and we're happy with that. Unfortunately, we had a fire a couple of weeks ago that started with a heater in the new plant, but we're working through that, and otherwise the plant's producing good water. We closed out that contract in December. We had several things that we had to work out, some claims and some other issues, and got all those resolved and closed out the contract. The Annapolis Solar Energy Park went into operation last summer, and that has proven to be successful, so we're getting cheaper energy and also getting some revenue from the sales of the power from that. We paved over 4 miles of streets last year. So part of that year was still the $2 million of funding, and then part of it was the $3 million. So we expect that to ramp up in the coming years as we have full years of the $3 million of funding. But that was a good start.
David, how many miles of?
4.
4.
So 4. So that was half of FY 18 and half of 19. So with the full $3 million per year, we expect that to ramp up. We awarded the new refuse and recycling collection contract. So that was a big push. That was our first resolicitation of that. So Bates will go away, and our new contractor will start in July. We awarded the MS4 water quality project contracts. That's design, build, operate, maintain. Is a 20-year contract with Greenvest, and again, that was a big push to get that done, and it took a couple of years to get it in place, but it is in place now. So I think that's going to pay big dividends for the city. We produced 1.2 billion gallons of water last year. It sounds like a big number. So some of the things we're looking forward to over this next coming year, recycling has become a big challenge for everybody across the United States, and us included. The Chinese aren't buying our collectively America's recyclables any longer, and so there's not a lot of money in those commodities as there was in the past. We used to actually not have to pay for that service. We'd have to pay to get it all collected and transported to the recycling center. Wouldn't have to pay for the disposal, and we would get some revenue back. Now we're paying them to take the material at the recycling center, and we still have a lot of contamination because there's still a lot of plastic in our recycled loads, so we're going to continue to do public outreach, public education. We really did too good of a job in the past of saying recycle, 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 so people, when they err on the materials that could go either way, they throw it in the recycling because they want to do the right thing. So we end up with a lot of contaminated loads. So the contaminated loads go to the landfill.
Right.
So even if most of let's say it's in a plastic bag, even if it's all recyclables in a plastic bag, that's contaminated and it goes to the landfill. So we really need to educate people that if you're not sure which way it goes, it needs to go into the trash. So we'll be pushing that over the coming year.
Can we take a second on this topic, please? Because
Sure.
I got the postcard, and I thought it was pretty clear, but I've been getting a lot of questions from my constituents about it. And I don't know what we do to get them to contaminate the things that we still can recycle. I don't know whether another postcard is in offing or what, but...
It's got to be frustrating because there was nothing unclear in that
I
postcard. It was
agree.
very
I thought
clear.
it made a great deal of sense.
People took
but-
a quick look at it and said, oh, yeah, and continued to do what they've always been doing in many cases, I fear. And I don't, you guys didn't do anything wrong. I thought it was very clear.
It's on the
what-
side of my refrigerator.
Yeah, and it actually went better than what we expected it to. So the number of containers that didn't get picked up, because, that's what we started doing, is not picking up those containers that had plastics in them.
Right.
The folks that are picking up the recycling could see, we didn't put a lot of stickers on cans saying we can't pick it up. People generally followed the rules. So
Right.
I think that was a good news story. We thought it was going to be much, much worse, and it was probably, what do we think, maybe not even 10% probably. So it
but
seems
this
to be
is-
working, and it's not that hard. We're not asking people to buy extra things like we did with the paper bags for the green waste. That was a bigger deal,
Yeah.
really. We provided containers, but people couldn't use their plastic bags and had to buy paper bags if they were going to use bags. Here, they don't have to put it in a plastic bag. They can just empty it straight into the container, and that's what we hope that they do.
But I think you're correct in characterizing, this is a problem all over the country, and it's going worse. My son just changed jobs. He's now a lobbyist, and he represents, amongst other people, the glass bottle industry. And a lot of people are not accepting it because the bottles break on the line, and also they're now starting to get choosy on what color bottles they'll recycle. So what do we do about this? I mean, how are we going to think about the future of all of this for the city? It sounds like we're going to need more landfill.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be part of it. Part of it's that we're going to have to keep pulling back on what materials are going to be accepted. You're right. I mean, they like the clear glass. All the other glass, all the colored glass has no value.
Yeah.
So we get it all mixed, so that means none of it has value. And that's been going on for years. Waste Management's been shipping it down to North Carolina because somebody will take it down there. So you can imagine what costs involved for Waste Management to ship it down to North Carolina, all the glass. So I hope we continue to have single stream, because if we have to segregate, that
Yeah.
really is a problem. And just keep pulling back on what materials can be accepted.
So a lot of states are not only putting deposit monies on there, but increasing it in an attempt to get people to separate it and get the 5 or 10 cents back. Maybe Alderman Savage, that might be something we'd want to be thinking about as a city level initiative. That's more administrative work, and I doubt the value, but at least then you could more easily separate the glass from everything else and separate clear from colored. And one of the things that Ross told me is that recycling glass is uses much less energy than producing new glass. So I think we still want to encourage people to recycle, but
Yeah.
I think I agree with you, Director Gerald, this is a real issue for the city and not that far away. And I'm wondering how we're going to manage that. Do we need to be thinking about, I don't know, what are the alternatives to filling up the landfill with refuse, and now a broader category of refuse?
Yeah, I mean, the alternatives like incineration are not great alternatives either, because we know that they pollute the air and they probably pollute the water and just have a lot of negative effects. So, yeah, there's not a lot of easy answers. I think that we need to redirect stuff to the refuse, though, just because the cost is going to be so unbearable. How much is the county paying a month? I think it was $30,000 a month they're paying now on the recycling side because of the amount of contamination they have. So, they've got areas where the issues are much, much worse than ours, and so $30,000 a month, where they used to have, revenue coming out of
Right.
it, now it's $30,000 a month.
So is 30,000 still less than a tipping fee for refuse?
No, it would be cheaper if it went into, if it went straight, because
How
they're having to
perverse is that?
transport it to Waste Management at the recycling center where it gets rejected, and then they transport it over to the transfer station. So that's a more expensive operation than going straight to the transfer station. So,
Well, I don't know I assume there's nothing we do with this year's budget, but I think I would look to my colleague who chairs the Environmental Matters Committee. Does seem to me this is something that we need to put on our agenda, on our radar screen, because this is, as my son told me, this is going out all over the country. And we're going to take a step backwards in terms of more and more trash going into landfills and be spoiling things. So thank you for that sidebar.
the next challenge is going to be along those same lines, standing up our new collection contract. The contractor that was the low bidder has successfully performed in the county, so they're familiar with working in the county. So we expect good things from them, but it'll still be a challenge getting them up to speed, and so anticipate a few phone calls for a while. They start July 1st, so there'll probably be some missed collections, but we'll have the infrastructure set up to manage those as the calls come in. Construction of the new swimming pool is going to be a challenge for us. We're running like crazy to get the design done and to get it priced this summer so that we'll be ready to start in September as soon as the swimming pool closes. And then we're going to be running like crazy to get the construction done before Memorial Day of next year. But that's an exciting project that I think is going to be great, that people are really going to like. So it's just a short time frame to get that all in place.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Alderman Payon, you asked me a question about the parking lot for the pool. Is
Yes.
right time to interject that question?
The cost of the parking lot is not included in the $3.1 million, is that correct?
It's not. That's correct.
So that is an extra, I don't have it in front of me, but 700,000, something like that?
So we asked for additional money in the CIP for the swimming pool. Part of it's for furnishings, 200,000 for furnishings, and the balance is for the parking lot. So we're going to do a full grade reconstruction, full depth reconstruction of the parking lot.
Geez, 200,000 for furnishings.
I don't think that's that much. First of all, it's got to be a certain quality. You can't have things breaking up and hurting people, and there is a considerable amount of furnishings.
Yeah,
When
I
I went over
understand.
the pool last year, Alderman Savage.
$200,000 would put an awful lot of good furnishings in your house and mine put together, I'm
Yeah, but
quite
think how
sure.
big the pool is.
You're
It's
right.
much bigger than your house and mine, that's for sure.
Well, I agree.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I can see the costs for the furniture, because I think the pool's running pretty short right now on functioning furniture. But I do have a question about the pavement. It sounds like that's coming from the program open space development money. Is that right?
Yes.
So has that been checked with DNR in terms, is that appropriate use? Are they okay with that?
So you can't really take that source and say that source is being used for the payment. You have a total project cost. The funding sources of the total project cost are open space development money, the $3.1 million, which is really PAYGO funding from the result of the sale of Eisenhower. And I don't have the page sitting in front of me. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of bonds in there for the match on the POS.
I think there is.
So DNR looks at it as one project that accomplishes this. So as long as the components of the development money are for an open space project, it's eligible. So you can't say the open space money is going for the parking lot and the 3.1 million is going for the pool and the bonds are going for the furniture. It's one project, 3 funding sources. It is a project that is eligible for open space funding.
Okay, can somebody send me a accounting of our current program open space
Yes.
allocation? I know we have 2 different funds, our sets. It's the acquisition and the development money. I'd just like to see overall where all that money, I know some of it's being proposed to be spent on the crab project, some's being proposed to be spent on the, at least one bike lane project, I think.
If you'll wait just a second, I can pull it right up.
Sure, okay.
So while we're on that topic, though, stormwater management. And I've been checking the permeable parking lot for the Eastport Yacht Club has still been very successful. Are we thinking about permeable parking?
We're not, but we're going to have robust stormwater management as part of that. So it's going to be built into the, right now the parking lot's just a smooth, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to have islands and stormwater retention and all of the required stormwater management.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Hi, yeah, I'm going to be a stickler on this one. When we, when you have an RFP for an in-kind replacement with a budget of 3.1, which was earmarked from the sale of the golf club, my constituents are thinking that we're going to include everything in that 3.1. But when you read the description of the pool, it says, the new pool facilities will be in the same location, blah, blah, blah. Will include a new bathhouse. That was part of the plan. A competitive 25-yard, 6-lane lap pool, a family leisure pool, a splash pad, a snack bar, and ample shaded patio areas. And then, of course, the additional funds are for the parking lot and to purchase furniture. I mean, my understanding is that we went to design-build contractors, and that should have been turnkey. So if we had to, lessen and not do the leisure pool or something like that, I just think that that's the way we should have handled this project instead of this scope creep. I'm not blaming, it's just, that's my understanding of when you're earmarked a budget and you stay within it. And I look at this as scope creep, and I'm not sure who's responsible for it. Okay.
You'll remember last year we thought that the 3.1 million was only going to be enough to do the pool, period. And then when we got the design build concepts, we found out that our 3.1, and we were not going to do the bathhouse. We had no money to do the bathhouse, which is in deplorable condition. We had no money for furnishings. We had no money for the parking lot. So when we found out that we could do both the pool and the bathhouse for the 3.1 million, I mean, and we didn't have the bathhouse in there for 3.1 million because we didn't have a funding source. You all weren't willing to raise taxes. We were maxed out on our debt. So once that became available within the 3.1 million we had, where we could actually do the bathhouse too, and then we got information from the county about our available program open space development funds, that was when we chose to say, okay, to do the project right, the 3.1 million not only covered the pool, which is all we thought it was going to cover, it covers the pool and the bathhouse, which we need to do. We've got stormwater management issues at the site. We've got a decaying parking lot at the site. So this was an opportunity for only the marginal amount of bonds that are in the budget, which is the matching portion for the POS money, to do the whole thing with somebody else's money and the amount we already had.
I think that we could have been more disciplined about it. We talked so long about it and what we could or couldn't get on the pool, but it's.
Yeah, and the way we did that solicitation is that we told all the bidders that we had $3.1 million. We had a list of things that we had to have, and we had a list of things that we wanted to have that included the parking lot repaved, that had the bubble, had a couple of other things, a heating system for the pool. So the competition was based on how much they could provide to us for the 3.1 million. We had 3 proposals, none of them included either the bubble roof or the parking lot. So if we would have gone back and said, okay, we appreciate the bid that you got, but we now are saying that the parking lot's mandatory, then the pool would have got much, much smaller. And maybe that's a trade-off we should have taken, but we erred on the side of making the swimming pool as good as possible and thinking that, if we couldn't do the parking lot would have been It's marginal, and it's going to need to be paid at some point.
Yeah.
Now's the right time to do it, but we could have done without that.
I'm just saying, you know, we don't want to raise taxes, so we need to be disciplined, and this
Yeah,
was
I mean,
an
it's just a
example.
little offensive to say that we allowed the scope to
I
creep,
don't-
because it
I
wasn't
don't
that. It
mean
was
that.
conscious decisions on what should be included and what
The
shouldn't.
public just is reacting to this, you know, where it's not,
Yeah.
Well,
I don't mean
will-
to offend you.
I think we did a good job. We had a set of parameters, a set of conditions, and a budget. I thought I remember, City Manager, you saying that in the pool, I'm looking at the description on page 33 of the CIP, we were also getting, or maybe it was you, Director Gerald, whatever we need to set up for if we ever went to a bubble. But I don't read that in the description unless I'm missing it. That is going to be part of the
That is,
whole project.
that's included, yeah. So we're building the foundation for the air-supported structure or bubble, so that'll be part of the pool.
But it doesn't include the bubble.
No, I understand that, but I did want to see, when we come back, I guess, to the CIP, I would like that to be included, because that was a nice, it wasn't a compromise, but it made me feel happy. I think it made Alderwoman Finlayson feel happy that we at least put that capability for the future if we decide we want to do it. So I guess we need to add that to the language.
Okay, so some of our other challenges coming up this year, we're going to have 2 large water line replacement projects in Alderman Payone's ward. So we're going to do a fairly big project out in West Annapolis, and then we're going to follow BGE in the Homewood and Germantown area and replace the water line there. So that's a big project. That's about, for us, that's about 3 miles of water line replacement in Homewood and Germantown. So that will be.
By the way, the ruts in the road are getting a little bit old, but having said that, the crew in general and the work they're doing are getting a lot of kudos from the neighborhood. They are very well trained and, you know, smiling and yes ma'am, yes sir, and most of the neighbors are not that unhappy about the situation. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, well, it will get worse before it gets better, because we did the same thing on Boucher, and you can ask Alderman Arnett how Boucher went, because we,
I was going to say, the people in Ward 8 are very happy that you're next. If we can only
it
get
just takes a
BG&E.
long time, because, you know, BGE will do all their work, and then we're going to come behind
Right.
and do the water line, and then we'll pave the streets, and we'll be done, but it's going to be a
It
struggle.
really is virtually every road in,
Yeah,
you know, in Germantown and Homewood. So that's a lot of roadway.
yeah.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
We're going to be designing and permitting the first group of MS4 water quality projects. We don't anticipate that construction will start. Those have a long lag on permitting, especially, so we'll be working on that with them, with Greenvest next year.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
chime in. What are you looking at?
Pardon?
What are you reading through?
Just my list.
Oh, just your, okay.
Just some of the things that are coming up next year, just
Oh,
to
gotcha.
sort of give a preview of the budget.
So
But-
is that you or Public Works or
Public
Greenvest doing
Yeah.
that, the project you were referencing?
They'll do the design and permitting. We're managing the work.
But once again, just as when you gave us an update on the 23 projects, this is good stuff. I mean, it really would be nice to get this. I'll put it in my blast email. When people complain about the ruts in the road or we don't get anything done, I don't think they understand the enormity of what's going on without them paying attention, or elsewhere for other citizens in the city. So,
Well, if I might interrupt, actually, in my ward, I think they do understand, and that's why they're not really complaining much, because
Well, that's
they
good.
did a very good job of,
Yeah.
both DPW and BGE did a good job of getting the word out, and the respective community heads, you know, put it all on their website and did the email thing, and I think everybody, one of the reasons they don't complain is because they know what's going on, so. And
Okay.
you've already explained about, you're going to be replacing the water pipes at the same time. That's logical because the road's already dug up and, I mean, good job so far.
Thank you. Retirements are my next big concern for the coming years. Since I've been here a little over 8 years, and I've had a very stable leadership group, amazingly stable. I don't think anybody's left, but now, I've lost my water treatment plant superintendent, so we've replaced him. Losing my facilities supervisor, and the dominoes are going to start falling. So I can see that over the next couple of years is that I've got supervisors in my department that are at that age that we're going to start losing them. So we're going to lose a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge when those folks leave. We're going to start the BGE LED streetlight retrofits next month, and that's going to run through probably into October, at least through September. So that'll be a big push to replace all 3,000 of the streetlights across the city.
Can we stop there for a second? So yesterday, or I think it was yesterday, when we were talking to police, those lights come at least with lots of camera and other kinds of capabilities, am I correct? So are we coordinating, are we going to be, okay.
Yeah, so we're
I
getting.
didn't think
we're-
Captain Amoya was fully aware of all that when we were discussing it, but
Yeah,
this is
Ricky
huge.
Truitt's been involved, and he's met with BGE and talked through that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting ready to sign an MOU with BGE to initiate the Connected City program. And so, the BGE, or the LED light is sort of the infrastructure that allows us to add a lot of smart technology to the street lights. It could be cameras, it could be, gunshot detection, it could be a lot of different things. It's also going to allow BGE to know when those street lights are out. So instead of us
Right.
having to get a report, they'll know exactly when a street light is burnt out, and they'll be able to replace it. So BGE is very interested in this and doing some innovative thing because we're going to be one of the pilots for this. They're still sort of developing what can be done with the street lights, but it's going to be interesting as we work through that. So the first thing we have to do is get the LED street lights installed, and then we'll have a lot of opportunities to do good things.
Okay.
We've got a new sidewalk contractor, so we're going to start really pushing sidewalk replacements. I talked about that during the CIP, but that's going to be a big push.
So let me interrupt again. Alderman Payan,
Yes.
sidewalks, new sidewalks for students on one of your streets?
Cedar Park. I've been in touch several times with with Dave about it. It doesn't look like there's money there, but we do have the right-of-way. I have found that out. No, I don't think we have to purchase the property. It's a matter of just having the money to put the sidewalks down and listening to people complaining about 5 feet of their property, they can't use it anymore, like they use it anyway within 5 feet of the speedway called Cedar Park Drive. It would be, it's a safety issue to me. And let me tell you, Cedar Park Drive is hardly the only road in the city where this is an issue. There are others.
Many,
Yeah,
many other
yeah,
areas.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there are a number in Ward 3 that they've got, well, I think a product of an earlier period where, frankly, I hate to say it, but nobody really cared about that part of town, or at least not as much as they should have. And they've got all kinds of places there that ought to have sidewalks, and they don't. I understand that, but
Yeah, in Ward 6.
boy, anything we could do to get even a little bit of Cedar Park done would be great.
So, couple of things on this. Yes, Alderwoman Pendle Charles has mentioned this also, and she can't be here to bring it up, but I'm doing that for her. I have not as critical, because I don't have school kids on like Chester Avenue, but I do have, a lot of people that are walking in the street because there's no sidewalk, and particularly young mothers. I don't know how they afford it, but there's an influx of young families in Ward 8, and they're out with their carriages, usually a carriage, 2 carriages, 2 moms, and 3 dogs, and they're right in the middle of Chester Avenue. The other thing that we haven't talked about in a while, I mentioned it in passing, and I went to look for my copy of the sidewalk master plan. I couldn't find it. But I do think we have such a...
Marcia found it,
Oh, good. All right.
so we
well,
have it. It was
So I guess,
2004.
There have been a more recent one. There have been,
yeah. Yeah, it was before I was on the council, but it was done under Ellen. And I thought it was pretty good, what I remember of it. But we have, I think, and this is where dialogue with the council, we have kind of, I don't know if it's a mess or an understanding or an ambiguity, but who's responsible for repairs, who's responsible for putting in new sidewalks? You explained to us during the CIP that that would be a frontage assessment if we wanted someone to have new sidewalks.
Right.
It seems to me it's time we need to go back and look at that legislation and then even think about mechanisms where people could get sidewalks at wholesale through the city and that sort of thing.
I just wanted to ask David if he would discuss what you had discussed with me, just the policy behind new sidewalks on Cedar
Yeah.
Park Road versus repairing an existing sidewalk that's in need of repair.
So the way the city code is written now, and this was from back when the sidewalk fee was implemented, was the city took over responsibility. Before that, residents had all the responsibilities for sidewalks. So the city initiated this sidewalk fee and took over the replacement of sidewalks. So when they're deteriorated, the city has responsibility to replace them. The maintenance of sidewalks, which means snow removal and litter removal and cleaning and weeds and all of that, is with the adjacent property owners. Installation of infill sidewalks is also with the adjacent property owners, and the code says that the Director of Public Works can make the decision that a sidewalk is needed and to notify the property owner that they have to install the sidewalk, and if they don't, then Public Works can install it and bill the homeowner.
Right.
So that's the policy right now. So that's why we haven't moved aggressively with installing new infill sidewalks, because right now I'm not sure the code envisions the city doing that. I think it envisions
Right.
the property owner.
And that's on us, but Alderwoman Finlayson and I have talked about, maybe not for this year, but for next year, a separate sidewalk fund of maybe another 600. That would be monies that would facilitate new sidewalks, at least where there's a health safety issue. Children in the streets clearly is worrisome.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to go back. We need to look at the master plan, take it seriously. I thought it was good at primary, secondary, and tertiary, which indicated it's kind of a triage, but it really did plan for a complete sidewalk system. In your town hall, maybe you're going to talk about this, weren't sidewalks number 2 for the citizens? Why don't you go ahead?
They were up there, yeah, and so it's definitely something people want to see done. So my question is, I guess, because we have, I know not always, but we often have a right-of-way along the roadways. So what's preventing us from just simply, we've got the right to do what we want in the right-of-way, why can't we just go in there and put in a sidewalk?
I think we could. I think the code just says that that's the responsibility of the property owner. So instead of us spending city funds when it's the responsibility of the property owner, we just haven't.
Yeah,
So-
okay. So there's
Yeah,
nothing really
I think it's a policy
preventing
issue.
it,
That's
it's just-
what we talked about during the CIP discussion. It's
Yeah.
really a policy issue of who does the city council want to replace sidewalks? If it's the city, yeah, of course we can, and we can set priorities and use the master plan. I don't think things have changed that much, even though it's been 15 years. I think the priorities then are still the priorities now. So we could use that to prioritize and start installing.
Yeah, because I'd like, ideally, I'd like to set up some kind of fund if we need to, that we can use if, I don't know, I haven't seen the master plan, but presumably if it identifies gaps that need to get filled with sidewalk, they would get prioritized based on schools and other need, and we just get those expanded using the fund. Ideally, again, I'd like to have impact fee. I mean, that's how impact fees are supposed to be used, right? I think to expand infrastructure. And I don't think we collect that. That's something I would definitely want added to this budget. At least that's going to be one of my amendments. If we have any information about what other jurisdictions do. I mean, I believe the county expands sidewalks whenever they do their road repaving. That's one thing they consider and often do before they're paving. So, I mean, if they can work it in, I think it'd be nice if we could, certainly my residents, like you said, it's one of their top concerns.
Alderman Savage, the county does not use impact fees for sidewalks.
Yeah, well, do they have a program I believe they have a program to expand sidewalks, even if they don't have impact fees. I think it's grouped in with
There's
their
a
paving
school
program.
sidewalk program
But I know when they go out
that's
to
run by the school system and funded by the
when
county.
they go out to repave roads, they go out ahead
Well,
and
we
improve all
do
the
sidewalks
We do
when
that
we
for
repave roads
replacements, we
too.
just don't do infill.
We do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to clarify, you can't use impact fees at the county for sidewalks.
I can't use what?
Not use impact fees at the county for sidewalks.
Yeah, that's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing
Okay, I thought that's what
our
you
own
said.
impact fees for sidewalks. Yeah, I think that's.
So do you want legislation that establishes an impact fee for sidewalks that would take effect July 1st? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Actually,
Have you
I'd
asked
like
the
it
Office of
for
Law for that?
Impact
Sorry?
fees.
Have you asked the Office of Law for that?
No. This is my first time asking for it. Been on my list, but that's this.
But I think we need to establish legislation for impact fees writ large, not just sidewalks, but
Yeah.
for all of the, and I don't know exactly what the counties say, but I'd certainly be willing to start where what the county does for their impact fees.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's a big lift, I don't think it needs to get done for this budget, but I think we can do it between budgets and.
I'm
It's
going to
passed.
ask you to follow the Office of Law protocol on requesting legislation and submit
Sure.
it that way so that there's no miscommunication, there's no nothing.
Right.
Follow the protocol.
And I'll
Yeah.
be
For requesting
happy to be a
legislation.
No problem.
co-sponsor. And I'll also share the over 300 pictures that the Eastport Civic Association has sent me where there's either disrepair or missing sidewalks.
I'll just add again, if you're talking disrepair, impact
I-
fees
I
are
realize-
expanded capacity.
Yep, it's
Okay.
two different things, I get it.
Okay, just
And
want to
I
make
think
sure.
we need to get that sorted out. So, Alderwoman,
Just really quickly, if David's still talking to me. um, Would you be willing to work with me on revising the code so that it works more efficiently as far as funding source from the capital improvement budget versus, it sounds like we need to clarify or revise the code as far as sidewalks.
We need to address who's responsible for the infill, for the new sections of sidewalks, the infill sidewalks. Because right now,
On private
it's
property, I
pretty
guess.
clear that it's the homeowner that's
Yeah.
responsible.
Public property, it's the public entity, right? I mean, a new sidewalk at a school is, or
Yeah.
a bad example, but.
Right. And we work with the school, and we tried to get the school to support some of the, in Alderman Payone's area, because those are kids that are walking to school, so that should be tied to them. But they felt like that was too far away. Because they provided new sidewalks when Germantown was completed, and they felt like that was all
Well,
that was needed.
they did all the way down Wendell to
Yeah,
Cedar Park, but
yeah.
doesn't really get it done in this case. I mean, I can't say they didn't, they put in a lot of sidewalk, actually, but didn't get it done.
Okay, the next thing is the Public Works Maintenance Facility, and we're looking forward to working through that process, and we talked about that during the CIP hearing also, but we're looking forward to getting that ball rolling on that project. Maynard Burgess is going to be renovated this coming year. We're wrapping up the design. We're working with MHT to get their buy-in. We got a grant coming from them, and so we'll get started with that project. Flood mitigation, of course.
on Maynard Burgess, do we have in the back of our minds starting a second initiative with Maynard Burgess to make the second floor usable for any number of possible things?
We haven't started that, but if there's interest, we can certainly do that. We've been focused on this project, but
Yeah.
we can put a new CIP in for next year to address the design for that.
And for the first floor, Dr. Leone has an incredible amount of African-American artifacts, and I've heard a lot of people talk about something which I think would be great, which would be to furnish it like it would have been when the Burgesses lived there. That's probably something we need to marry up with Historic Annapolis or other groups, but it does seem like, and when we talk about Fred, whatever his name is, about the 10 points of interest, that does seem to me that would be a point of interest for people who come to Annapolis. And then we can point out some of the historic features of this building as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, just another, because you don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
Kind
I mentioned flood mitigation, so we're still working on the design for that, going to HBC this month to do the formal approval for that project.
But do we need to talk about the interim, the $30,000 solution? Do you have the money for that? And are we getting ready to just go ahead and do that?
We're moving ahead with it. We're going to do that ourselves.
Okay.
We think it's going to be a lot cheaper that way and better. We're not having to run across the road surface. We've devised a way to run the utilities through the pipe, so that'll be interesting. And so, the boat show's going on now, so we expect to be down there next week after the boat show.
Yeah, it's flooding today.
Install that. It's flooded today. It
Yep.
is, yeah. Okay, so those are our highlights. I handed out the performance measures, which they were a little bit cumbersome, so they weren't included in the budget document, but we do have a list of performance measures: solid waste, utilities, streets, fleet, facilities, and water treatment plant that we track every month. They used to be part of the city manager report, and now we've just keep them separately
Right.
for our measures.
No, and thank you for that. And this is a work in progress. City manager's made that clear, but I just think this is such a huge step forward, and I was reviewing it. I was still listening, but I was reviewing it while you were talking, and I think it's going to be very helpful. And again, I was talking to a former colleague when I was earning a living, and talking about how the government is remiss in letting the people know all the things we do. My last center spent a huge amount of federal tax dollars, almost $100 million. And we did some stuff that was very important in policy making, but most people didn't know what it was and what we were doing and how critical it was in the Clinton healthcare reform and in current healthcare reform activities. And so the things that you've given us, the 23 items and this, are just worth gold, I think. And it's things I'd be more than happy to discuss it at my town hall meeting, or invite you, even better, to discuss it, because you don't have anything to do in the evening, right?
Sure.
But I think we don't tout all the things we do. And when we do a budget and people see the amount of money and they grumble, but we don't make them aware of what they're getting for all of that. So I really do appreciate your summary today, and I would look forward, if you have the chance, to give it to us in writing, and I will promise you I will use it.
Okay.
Yes, Alderwoman Tierney.
Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't mention one project, which is the Cornhill Street brick sidewalk replacement. I mean, that was extraordinary craftsmanship, almost artisanship of doing the brick in a herringbone pattern and then coming back and resanding the joints. And you should take great pride in that.
It turned out
If anyone
great.
marks
looks
it up,
good.
I will really be upset.
you.
No, it's beautiful.
Alderman Savage.
Do you have more to your presentation?
Yeah, I was just going to run through our budget requests.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let me to get through the POS allocations right now. So in POS, I'm sorry,
I couldn't hear either of you.
would you like me to give the POS funding answer that he asked the question about how much funding we have?
Please.
Okay. So POS acquisition money, we have about $1,240,000 available, and we are proposing to use $250,000 of it towards the CRAB proposal, should that go through with the state acquiring and owning the marina.
So 1.4.
Right now, this is coming from the county. It's not in your budget book. We have $1,240,517 available going into FY20.
Okay.
That includes our FY20 allocation. And we are proposing to use $250,000 of it for the CRAB project. on program open space money, including our FY20 allocation from the county, assuming it's approved in their budget, but I'm certain that would be. We would have $618,313 available, and we are proposing to use $618,300 for the pool. So if this budget is approved, we will have no POS development money available again until FY 2021. It'll use everything we have unspent that's been allocated to us and what will be allocated to us in FY 2020.
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you. And regarding the acquisition, got 250 for Crab. I thought some bike lanes were, are
There's
they
no
not?
bike lanes funded with POS acquisition money
Okay.
in the budget.
Okay,
But there is money to study and develop where we would expand the bike lanes, whether there would be land acquisition required to do that, which is the reason we're leaving those monies unspent, so that they can be allocated once that study has been done.
Okay.
You can use POS acquisition money for fee simple purchases. It's not clear that we could use it for easements or right-of-ways or things like that, so we need to identify exactly what parcels would need to be acquired and whether we can use this money for that purpose. That's why we're leaving the acquisition money unappropriated.
okay.
But on that topic, is it not the mayor's notion that we will use that to help connectivity of greenways and things like that?
That is the hope once the bike pathway study is completed.
Right. I support that hope. All right, sorry.
Okay, so getting back to the business at hand, which is the budget. So we have a level service budget with a few enhancements. So the first are contract employees that we're hoping will be converted to civil service employees. These are long-term contractual employees. Two of them are funded by the CIP. That's Diane Doyen, who handles all of our wastewater projects, and Remy Sonneville, who handles our inspections for our paving and sidewalk contractors. And then John Hillary, who's a longtime mechanic in the fire department, we'd like to convert to civil service.
I see capital project and construction inspector. Where's the third one?
He would be in Fleet.
Oh, on page 97, let's see. Yeah, contractual mechanic, full-time, contractual mechanic, part-time. They're currently contract,
Right.
and you want to convert them
To civil service. Yeah.
So it's not, so we need to have some arrows showing that. That would be basically at their current level of pay. Do they get benefits now?
He gets, what benefits do he get?
They currently get all benefits but pension.
Pardon me?
They currently get all benefits but pension.
Pension.
And there is some question about whether we're going to have to provide pension to contractual employees in the future. So that's an issue we're resolving.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just have a question about the, what did you say about the construction inspection position? That's being converted,
Yes, being converted from contractual employee to,
and what do they do?
he inspects and coordinates the street work and the sidewalk work.
Oh, okay.
Do we know
And-
what the approximate salary level is?
I don't think I have that.
It's in here. I think it's 12. I believe it's grade 12. Oh, it's a 10, sorry.
8/10s?
Yes, it's it. You'll see the narrative following the table on page 94. It says, in FY20, a contractual capital project assistance is converted to civil engineer 2, grade A15, and a contractual construction inspector is converted to public works inspector, grade A10.
So the additional cost would be the benefit costs for these two conversions?
Yeah.
Okay, and then if we can skip over, you probably have it here as well, although I don't see it, on page 97, we're talking about converting the two mechanics from contract to civil service. Down at the bottom of that table, under
No.
fleet maintenance.
No,
It's just the
just one.
contractual mechanic full-time.
we're adding one contractual mechanic full-time. We're not doing any conversion.
Oh, okay, all right. All right. So
Okay.
again, sorry to
Um,
interrupt.
The enhancements that we asked for additional stormwater engineer, and that will be in the watershed restoration fund, $123,000.
Net narratives on page 96.
Street sweeping coordinator. Right now, when we street sweep, we don't post the streets, which means that if there's parking there, we don't do curb to curb. To get MS4 credit, we need to street sweep curb to curb, so this person will be working ahead of them all the time to post streets and allow us to get some MS4 credit for our street sweeping program.
So you can't see my pages, but I have a gigantic red yes to this. But do we need to put signage up like other municipalities, so don't
Yes.
park here the third Thursday of the month?
Yeah, so this person will be working with SP Plus, or if they allow him to do it, or she to do it themselves, to
Well,
get the
I-
signs posted.
Yeah, I totally,
And we won't do entire streets, we'll do half at a time so that we
Right.
don't take all the parking.
that's how they do it in DC.
Yeah.
Oh, can I, we had the police in my neighborhood early yesterday morning because another tractor-trailer truck came down Sixth Street and couldn't make the turn on Chester. Can we make a side note? I want to come to you about putting a no truck sign entering Sixth Street. We're losing, and the guy had to back this, I don't know how he did it. I mean, he's really skillful. Back it all the way back down Sixth Street into the intersection of Sixth and Chesapeake with the police doing it and shielding automobile mirrors as he was backing back and people fleeing out to the street to get their cars out of the way. But Sixth Street just can't accommodate that
Yeah.
truck traffic. Anyway, I'm sorry for
Okay.
that personal interruption, but back to the street sweepers. So I'm trying to look at, we go from 5 to 8 on the watershed restoration. Which one of those is an office associate?
Yeah.
One of them is a
That's it.
stormwater
That's it.
management?
That's what's classified right now, as office associate, administrative person.
Right. And we increase the stormwater management engineer, 1 to 2.
Right.
That's someone who would work with Matt Waters.
Right. Matt Waters just has too much on his plate.
We know that stormwater is very topical with the council.
Yeah.
And then environmental programs coordinator. Is that Racine?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have a few other questions about this, if I may. So the street sweeping, you're referring to the office associate 3,
Mhm.
which would be coordinating, posting signs, coordinating that whole.
Right.
And are those 2 equipment operators, the 1 and the 3, what are their duties and responsibilities? That, I'm looking on page 96.
So they're the storm drain crew that's in utilities. So they're actually, that's all they do. They work on, they have a Vector truck and they work on the storm drain system exclusively. They don't do any street-related work, 'cause that's a different division. They're in utilities and only work on the storm drain system.
And did we have those prior to the stormwater fee?
Yes, it sounds like we did. That was before me, but yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so as a side note, I mean, I've spoken to the county on a number of occasions, and they are open to the city piggybacking on their street sweeping contract. I don't know if it would make sense or not for the city. I don't have any more information beyond that they're willing to have that conversation. I don't know if it may make more sense for us financially to do that. I don't know if the contractor would have the ability to post streets with signs or not, but I think that may be something worthwhile looking into, especially before we staff up with more permanent positions.
So again, the only new one is the stormwater engineer and the administrative person. So the street sweepers, we
And the
we
office
already have.
associate,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, that's
The
what
office associate and the stormwater engineer are the only two new ones.
okay.
The street sweepers are in the streets budget. So it would only be the person that's coordinating all their work that would be in the watershed fund.
Now the PW maintenance worker one, what are the duties of that?
That's, so the storm drain crew is a 3-person crew. So there's one that's a lead, that's a, I guess, equipment operator 2, or is he 3? He's a 3 because they use a Vector truck, so that requires a higher level of expertise. The maintenance worker is the laborer in that 3-person crew.
So what if, are they always, I mean, if they're not doing storm drain work, do they get pulled onto other duties like?
There's a
Street
lot of,
pot work.
there's a lot of backlog of storm drain work, so there's never a shortage of work where they
Okay.
don't have anything to do.
And, okay, and I guess the other question about the environmental compliance inspector, I know that's one being proposed to be funded out of that, but I do want to point out that that would require a job description change. The current position has, that's only a part of her responsibilities is stormwater right now. And from my understanding is that that position in this budget will get changed, so all of its responsibilities are stormwater, is that correct?
That is correct. I sent you the current and proposed job descriptions for all 3 of the positions currently in the Office of Environmental Policy. The Human Resources Division has reviewed each of the job descriptions and decided the appropriate grade for the position. In this case, with the duties as proposed, which it's up to me as the city manager to decide the duties, job duties, descriptions, except that this one for the appointed exempt service. For civil service, it has to go before the Civil Service Review Board, so this proposed change would require their approval. And so we are proposing to upgrade the position from a grade 12 to a grade 13. The job summary is manages compliance with Maryland Department of the Environment Phase 2 NPDES, MS4 permit, and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Chesapeake Bay total maximum daily load goals, education and outreach activities associated with those programs, and supports the Director of Public Works in the development and administration of stormwater management programs. It manages and tracks and compiles data to ensure compliance with MS4 permit, including drafting reports for MDE and coordinating staff efforts to support permit requirements. Manages, tracks, and compiles data to ensure attainment of TMDL goals, including drafting reports. Develops and manages community education and outreach programs related to stormwater management and watershed restoration. Makes presentations to the public, the city council, and standing committees, develops and administers stormwater management programs as determined by the Director of Public Works, identifies, pursues, and manages grants to further the city's stormwater management and watershed restoration fund work, and prepares grant reports, communicates with the public relative to stormwater management and watershed restoration, and performs other related job duties as assigned.
Yeah, so the reason I bring it up is because if you look at her old job description, there are a number of responsibilities that would get lost in the change. So in addition to the MPDS MS4 compliance program that she works on, again, she said that's not the majority of her work currently. She also deals with environmental compliance training for city staff. Let's see, works on applications coordinating work to maintain city sustainability certifications, works on managing the let's see, environmental education, the stewardship program, various environmental certifications, works on compliance information associated with new ordinances, floodplain management, oversight, performing NEPA environmental review for projects subject to HUD requirements, make presentations to various bodies, liaison to the commission, environmental commission, collaborating with community groups for preparation of grants, not specific to stormwater. Responsible for education, development of materials associated with the fee, stormwater fee, reviewing construction drawings, site plans, and special projects. So my point is, those are a lot of responsibilities which make up a majority of the job duties, which should be lost.
Those
So
job,
for the-
they wouldn't be
let me
lost,
finish.
they've been
So
moved.
for the committee's knowledge, and that's one thing I'm concerned about, are those duties being lost. So
They
what
haven't been lost, they've been moved. So if you look at the proposed job description that you were provided for the Economic Policy Advisor position, it includes developing and managing community education and outreach programs, including the Annapolis Environmental Stewardship Program, Bee City USA Pollinator Garden Assistance, compliance information with ordinances. So the duties that were currently assigned to Racine have, that are not related to stormwater, are either assigned to the Environmental Policy Advisor position, or if they related to trees in any way, because hers was, has a kind of general environmental component, they would fall under the Forester position. And the floodplain administrator, right now Racine is a backup floodplain administrator. John Manassa is the primary floodplain administrator, and so in our proposal and in the legislation that the mayor has proposed, floodplain administration is under planning and zoning. So none of the duties that Racine performs now have been lost. They have all either been reassigned to planning and zoning, to the environmental policy advisor position, or to planning and zoning through the forester position.
Yeah, well, I know, well, so I'm concerned, one, about the dilution of some of the environmental responsibilities, but also I feel like there's a lot of responsibilities to be putting on one person, which is the new environmental policy advisor. So I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole with that, but wanted to point that out for the committee. So I think in terms of the positions, Mr. Chair, I do have questions about the money for the watershed fund. Can I do that now, or do you want me to wait on that?
Can we, because I wanted to ask an overall question about the FTEs, which is, if I'm reading the tables correctly, this is an increase of 10 full-time equivalent positions, which not trivial increase. I'm focusing on the 1-in-1. I still don't understand in refuse, if we're contracting it out, I think you explained this during the CIP, but the two new equipment operators are people that pick up the city waste baskets, because that's not part of the contract?
Yeah, that's correct. So when we first did the Bates contract, when we contracted out, we included all of the park cans and all of the street cans in the contract. We pretty quickly realized that the street cans are problematic and the park cans didn't work at all. So we removed the park cans, and Park and Rec took that over probably a year into the contract. Well, that was scary. And then we took out the weekend collection of the street cans, because the contractor was having to send trucks only to do those street cans on the weekends, so that was very expensive. So we got a lot of money back for that and took over that purpose. Now we're going to take over the street cans all the time. So the new collection contractor only has responsibility for residential, not any street cans, not any park cans. So we need people to do that. It's not like we...
So I'm honor-bound to ask my constituent Jess Packler's question about more street cans in Ward 8. We've talked about this before, the cost of installing them and certainly the cost of cleaning them, but I think she makes a good point, not just for my ward, but for all wards, that if we provide those receptacles, first of all, I'm afraid it'll be filled with doggy waste, but certainly we have a prospect of keeping the neighborhoods much cleaner. I don't know whether these two people add much to our capability, but...
Well, I think they do. Yeah, I think they do. So that's something that we could look at. I don't know what process we want to use to prioritize those. I guess I would ask you all to let us know which ones are really high priority, realizing there may be additional costs involved, and if you think they're worthwhile, then...
I'll tell you right now, the answer is wherever the kids are walking to school.
Yeah.
So
And
the
those-
path
and those
that people
probably
take
make sense.
Eastport Elementary, particularly coming down Boucher and those, because particularly after school, stop at one of the local places and get a candy bar or drink, and then, so that's...
Because the street cans downtown, we pick up throughout the day. These that are spread out in the community, I don't think we'd have to pick them up throughout the day. I think we swing by once a day and collect the cans, and so I think we have some additional capacity to do that with
All right.
these two new equipment operators.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to let you know that there's a strong line of storms that's coming through from the west. They should be here in about 15 minutes, there's a tornado watch. So I
Okay.
just thought with the big windows,
All right, maybe we should close the shutters. Or
Close the
I
meeting.
take a motion to adjourn. By the way, I really appreciate the thorough dialogue. Public Works is critical to providing services to our residents, and I think it's worth taking the time we're taking to go through this. But it is, I get constantly reminded, and it's not just Jess, I don't want to put it on her, other citizens make the same note. And I'm, look to my colleagues, I would imagine, well, you get everything, but but I would look to Alderman Savage and Alderman Leon. I know that this feels like it's opening up Pandora's box or Pandora's trash can, if you will, but heavily trafficked by kids is an area that seems like it generates a lot of
Yeah, I
traffic.
mean, we can try it. We can set some out. If we see that nothing's appearing in the trash cans, then
Yeah, move 'em.
Then we move them, yeah, and find better places. But
Except
you know,
don't
we
you
can
have to
track
bolt them
that.
down so they don't go away for other means?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Yes, Alderman Savage, then Alderwoman Tierney.
Just didn't know when the time and place to introduce my amendment.
Oh, yeah, please keep that in mind. We'll get to it, but did you have?
Okay.
Well, I was wondering if I could ask some of the questions I had about the commercial registration fund.
Yes, and then we do need to get to dollars, because there's some surprisingly level items, and then there's some items with declines and items with big increases.
Yeah, so for the watershed restoration
Can you
fund,
show us to a page?
yeah, I'm looking for it now. Page that summarizes the,
Page 101 for the dollars?
it's one of lists the watershed fund and the,
And page
Money.
96 for the staffing and description.
yeah, 101, there we go. So the overall, if I'm not, so this year, FY19, the fund brings in about 1.5 million. Is that right?
I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, and so, and then this year, it's estimated to bring in 1.6 in revenues, is that correct?
What are you looking at, Rob? I'm not finding your numbers.
Well, I'm trying to find that, I get lost in this easily.
Okay, 101, watershed restoration.
So this year's budget is $1 million.
Oh, here it is.
500.
Yeah.
Budgeted revenues are $1,500,000. We think we're going to get closer to, I think it's $1,575,000,
So,
$1,580,000. And we are proposing a rate increase of 2% for next year, which would generate $1,660,000.
okay.
Are those in the
Page nine-
CIP?
Page 19.
No, Ross, that's on page 19 of the operating budget
Okay, way
book.
back there.
So this is
Holy cow.
FY 18, we raised 1.4, FY 19 is 1.5, the proposed FY 20 is 1.6, and that's with, you said 2% increase. So the questions I have, I guess, so the staff increases from FY 19 because of the new positions, and the reason I was asking about the positions is because I know the county's perspective, when I ran this by some of their staff, was that they take their philosophy is they use the money from the fund to pay for new positions they would not normally have if they didn't have a watershed program. Now I know we don't have that policy written anywhere, but I think I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from residents about how much we spend on maintenance and salaries, benefits. I'm not saying that's not a legitimate use of the money. The county also uses a significant amount of money for those things. That's what pays my salary and a lot of us on the maintenance end. But I think they also raise a lot more money. So I don't mean this to be overly critical. I'm just walking you through, I think, where I'm coming from, kind of things I'm hearing. So I am trying to see where we can reduce the amount of staff we have funded out of that fund. So, I mean, personally, I'm not quite, I don't deny the need for a second stormwater management engineer. I think there's a clear need. It's been a long time since we've needed that for sure. But, even personally, I was going to wait. It was on my list to do, but I was going to wait till we restructured the fee to pay for that. So that's something I'm kind of wrestling with personally, at least. So, but my question, I guess another question, on transfers on page 101, it says 1.2 million is being transferred into the fund to bring the total amount up to that 2.1 million. What is that? Page 101.
The top box is
So
third line up from the
1.1
bottom.
million of that is transferred to the CIP.
Okay.
Right, right, Jody? So on page 101, the transfers and the watershed restoration, the 1.2 million, 1.1 million is transferred to the CIP.
1.1 million is PAYGO.
Yeah.
The rest would be transfers of that fund to the fleet maintenance fund and to the general fund as far as their indirect cost.
Okay. But a majority of that's 1.1 is for related to CIP.
Yeah, and $1 million of it's for water quality projects, and 100,000 is for storm drain CIP projects.
And what about, jumping back a little bit, the contractual services, that 60,000, what does that represent?
Are you still in the watershed?
Yeah,
restoration?
101, line 2 on the contractual
Right,
services.
the-
I'm just
the
curious what
60,000?
kind of contractual services are.
Jody's looking it up for you.
Okay.
We're checking, but my understanding is that is when the storm drain crew has to hire a contractor to help with some of the work that they do.
Okay.
But we're checking.
That makes sense, yeah.
So were you asking about supplies or?
Just the contractual services.
Is that it?
Well, so I guess I'll go on. The other, so I understand the 1.1 is coming from the CIP, and I guess that 1 million is the annual payment to Greenvest to do their work,
Yeah, it's the
right?
annual amount that we can use for Greenvest projects.
Is that in the contract? Like, are we going to be doing 1 million every year, or is that going to be fluctuating based on
It's going to be
projects?
fluctuating.
Okay.
It's like this coming year when we're just paying for design and permitting, it'll be less.
Yeah.
But that carries over, so that'll be available in future years for construction.
Now, the other rate study we did for the fund, done by not, was it AECom or, no, Stantec.
Stantec.
What did they anticipate? Because I know they're the ones who recommended the 2% increase, and then next year with the restructuring, it's going to be like 14 or so % increase.
Yeah,
in
they
fees.
anticipate the $1 million per year, year over year. So, you know, Greenvest is still looking at what the program's going to look like and how much the costs are going to be to get to
Yeah.
our requirement.
Okay.
So when we have that information, then we'll update those
Fine.
numbers.
Yeah.
To,
So, well, so Stantec recommended when we restructure the fee, it's going to be a lot more equitable. So your typical townhome or apartment resident is not going to be paying as much. Commercial is going to be probably paying significantly more. It's going to be closer in line with kind of the county's approach to the stormwater fee. And they were estimating every year, essentially, until 2025, I think, it's going to have to go up about, I think that it was ranged between 12 and 14 or something like that % a year in the fee. But the first year they did recommend just a 2%. However, I mean, this is something I'm kind of curious what the committee of one right now thinks about, because I'm kind of torn. I'm not arguing about needing to pay them, honestly. I think they have some great, excellent projects lined up. My concern is just if we should be, I think that money is being transferred from the general, where's that being transferred from? The
What money?
fund surplus?
What money?
So the 1.1 million,
It's coming from the Watershed Restoration Fund.
but that, well, it says but the fund's only raising 1.6 million. So where's that extra money coming that transferred into the fund?
The transfer into the Watershed Fund?
Yeah.
Or you mean
What page are you on?
the
Tell-
transfer that's going out
Are
of
you
the
talking-
watershed fund
Tell us what
to the
page you're-
capital projects?
Tell us what page you're looking at.
Well, I'm
'cause-
looking at 101, and the
Okay, that's a
proposed,
transfer out.
says total expenditures are 2.1 million.
Right. So the total expenditures are 2.1 million.
Right.
The transfers out of the Watershed Fund are 1,209,000. 1.1 million of the 1,209,000 is going to PAYGO Fund capital projects. The remainder is either a transfer to the fleet fund if they have vehicles, or a transfer
Right.
to the general fund to cover the administrative overhead costs of MIT and finance and those things. So
But if-
you have 2.1 million, 1.1 million, approximately half, is being used for capital projects.
Yeah.
By way of comparison, in the 19 budget for their county, their watershed protection fund had a budget of 11 million. 5.5 million went for debt service on capital projects. They leverage it. Instead of using it as pay-go, they use it to pay bonds. And the remaining 50% went to personal services and contract services. So we are percentage-wise the same percent as the county.
I understand that, but but the question is,
Where is it coming from? It's
Yeah,
coming
'cause if
from
you look at-
accumulated fund balance. It's got a fund balance in that fund.
because the other table, which I
And new
can't-
revenue,
I
there's
can't
one-
find now, but the other table says we raised it's estimated when we raise the fee 2%, it's going to bring in 1.6 million. So I'm asking where the difference from 1.6 to 2.1
it's from fund balance.
It's from fund balance. So at the end of FY '19, we project we will have $4.2 million of fund balance in that
Where's
fund.
that?
That is on a handout that Jody gave 2 or 3 days ago. He doesn't have it yet. He may have mine.
Thank you. Okay. Copy it right.
But I have, so, this is the watershed fund. I'll put this on the record. So this is the watershed fund. The actual fund balance at the end of '18 was 4.1 million. These are our projected revenues for '19, our projected expenditures for '19, so we expect the fund balance at the end of '19 to be 4.2 million. We're projecting we'll get $1,660,000 of additional revenue in '19, and we're proposing to spend 2.1 million, so we will have fund balance of 3,745,000. So we are using fund balance in FY '20, and we are appropriately using fund balance for pay-go of capital projects. That is an appropriate use of fund balance.
So, but is that 4 million, so that's FY '18, that's how much was in
It's an
the
actual
watershed
number
restoration fund?
for the audited financial statements.
That's in that specific fund?
Yes.
Okay. and
These
so-
are all fund-specific, and we don't cross funds, right? We don't want to
Right.
use money from, we don't want to use, fund balance we have in the watershed fund to say, oh, I need money in transportation. And that's why we've listed each of these by fund and by the type of fund.
Okay. Well, I guess that's one thing, oh, on the record too. That's one thing I didn't realize is that I knew that the fund was set up and designed to accumulate funds, right? But I know in the past, previous administrations have just spent it down and it wasn't accumulating. So it sounds like what you're saying is that fund has accumulated money over the years, and so we're just using some of the remaining funds in that overall watershed fund to be spent on, in this case, to make up that, whatever it is, $400,000, $500,000 to get to that 2.1
Correct.
million. Okay.
So
That
you,
helps a lot.
I
Thank
can, the amount that's shown for contractual services for FY20, there's $6,000 for repair and maintenance of equipment. There's $8,400 for repair and maintenance for vehicles. There's $43,500 for contract services, $1,500 for postage, and $650 for telephone service. So if you want more details on the breakdown of the contract services or the repair and maintenance equipment, I would ask DPW to,
I don't need to know, I just want generally how that money's
yeah.
spent, so I have an idea of what to tell people. I
Yeah,
don't
contract
know.
services is to
But
support.
what you
the-
said before
yeah.
makes sense, yeah. I get it. Okay, so that's, I think that's all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your patience.
Just one other thing that I wanted to mention,
Well,
that's.
Director Terrell, I let that dialogue go on, but we don't have a quorum, so we got to wait for Alderman Payon to come back. But I do want to, we're scheduled to go till 3:30. I think we've been keeping Director Gordon here for this whole time, and Director Trader just got here, unless we're going to go over time. No, actually, I don't think we have. In fact, I don't think we're through. I've certainly been educated on what, and appreciate what we've heard, but there are a couple more questions. So I guess when we get a quorum back, I'll ask what we want to do, because I don't want to keep people here any longer than we have to. Yeah, we'll get to your amendment in just a second, but we can't do any
Yeah.
business until we have a quorum.
Well, and Director Gerald, I do thank you for all the information. I do need to run to get back to my day job, but I wanted to get those are some of my big questions. So it makes a lot more sense. Thank you to you and for the city manager and Jody. The pieces are fitting together. It's good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I apologize. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Pardon? Yeah. I know. He just leaves. We don't have a quorum, so we can't do anything until you get back. So, yeah, right. Jesus Christ.
It's paused. It's just paused. Are you finished with Public Works?
We're almost finished. Right, and I'm going to, as soon as we get back, I'm going to, well, that's what I want to ask. I know Rob and Ellie both need to leave. I hate to keep department heads. Pardon me? Right. Mhm. Okay. All right. Bad chance.
Teresa,
The only way I don't lose
did
it
we
is-
increase the cost of the temporary passes offhand? I don't. Okay. Well, it's an increase, it wouldn't be an ordinance, it would go in the fee schedule. Yeah. No, we didn't. He's shaking his head no, so, yeah. I think we wanted to see what would happen this Monday night, and then we'll. Okay. Well, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've got a
On
plumber
which
showing
amendment, the staff?
at my house at a quarter
No,
of
the
a
traffic
floor
engineer.
that I put on, yeah.
Uh-huh. David,
Okay,
are you listening?
good. And we gotta pick up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that was fine. The budget, okay. Mike. How do I do? Okay. Or add, yeah. Okay. 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 Yeah, this is something I probably would send Jackie as far as, but I did, the funding source was tricky because I thought, you know, you said if you add something, find a way of finding money, but I was thinking, David, that this position would probably, could be reimbursed by capital projects, but it would still be a plus on the. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll send it to Jacqueline as an amendment.
Well, I'm gonna talk about that as soon as we reconvene.
We
So,
need to identify the cost of it.
Yeah.
yeah,
All right, so we need to identify the grade and the cost, and then we're doing all the budget amendments, me and Jody,
Okay,
okay? So send them to me and Jody, and we'll get
okay.
it done.
so
Okay.
we're gonna reconvene, and we're, Director Gordon and Director Trader, I'm sorry, but we're only scheduled till 3:30, and I've got a plumber showing up at my house to fix a water heater at 3:45, so I think we do need to adjourn on time. I'm very sorry to bring you over and then not get to hear you. We'll reschedule next week. Well,
Avengers is.
Alderman Payon, I think we do need to to conclude at 3:30, which we were scheduled to do. I think we need to finish up with Public Works, which I feel we're very close to. There's some materials that the city manager wanted us to get on fees, but I would take a motion to postpone until next Tuesday? Tuesday, the hearings for for Parks and Recs and for Transportation. And at that point, Alderwoman Finlayson will be back and you won't.
I definitely will not.
Right. So,
I wish I were.
yeah, can I have a motion to reschedule?
Yes,
All right.
I would move to reschedule the public hearings of the Finance Committee for Rec and Parks and Transportation,
I second it.
with apologies.
Right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. So I'm sorry, Dr. Dua, Director Gordon, and Archie in the hallway. We will reschedule, and I apologize for disrupting your schedule. So we'll pick up next week. Thank you. And I hope you admired the presentation we had from Public Works, and I expect the same from you, Director Gordon. Thank you. right. So, there were a couple more questions I had, and they're more just observations than questions. I was looking at the dollar movements by each of the components. Everything seems pretty stable, and particularly when you look at some of the things where we dipped in 19 from 18. So I've been tending to look across 18, 19, and 20. The first place that came to my attention is on page 99, which is the water fund, which has a slight decline going from $2.2 million down to 1.8. Just wanted to know, and I'm again at the bottom of page 99, what's happening there. It looks like it looks like salaries and benefits are going down significantly.
Yeah, and we don't really manage the salaries and benefits. Do you know why that dropped off? Yeah, because we're actually, oh, you're right. So
This is the
this
water
first
fund?
one is the water treatment plant.
Yeah.
And so we started the decline that you anticipated with the new plant.
Okay, so that,
So we eliminated one of the mechanic positions.
I think you told us that it
Well,
would,
that was
once
the
we got the
Yeah,
water system up and running and,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
going to decline.
so everything is okay there. That's what we expected. I just wanted to check.
And so if you were to have that projection, FY19 projection column in there as well, I can pass those, some of them I've already passed out of the
Right.
finance, but I can give you pages that have the projection column in there.
Right.
And then you can see that how they're spending in accordance, in comparison to what we're asking.
Right.
for 20.
So it sounds like everything is as is expected. If we go to the water distribution, there's a big increase, and a lot of that is from debt service. I guess we're starting to pay for some of the bonds for, the debt service is the big jump. Everything else, salaries and benefits.
10%.
Yeah, normal
Yeah,
flow.
salaries and benefits increase both in the sewer fund and the water fund because we've completed our asset management system, so we're adding 3 people to do that. One,
Right.
to manage that whole process, and he'll be the assistant superintendent, and then 2, to do the actual
Transfers,
additional
yeah.
preventive maintenance work that's going to be required.
Yes, as Alderman Payon just observed, transfers are down, but debt service is way up. I'm looking, as from carryover from my professional life, I just look at where there's big changes and raise questions about it. Are we, you're
Jody,
com-
is the debt service because we're paying the full debt service on the new water treatment plant now? Because that's jumped.
The debt service would be a function of the debt.
it's an example of a transfer.
That when they sold
It's an
the
example of a
bonds,
transfer.
what the payout was for that bond issue. It
It's
would
money's
depend on
going
when
out.
we finish an asset. It would depend on when we borrowed the money.
Okay.
And I would have to go to the debt payout schedules to see that, what generated that jump, but it was probably
Sort of
based
thing,
on how
sewer
they
fund. Transfers
structured the
down.
payments.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think it was delayed repayment till
That's
everything was finished.
It could have
so it's
been.
gonna-
It could have been that they structured the repayments to when the asset was finished. That's very possible.
So on both of these accounts, looking at the sewer fund as well, transfers are down, and that's because Teresa adjusted the amount of administrative fees the general fund was charging these, so that's, again, what we expect.
Okay, so I'd have to look at the detail of what backs that up, but we did another indirect cost allocation plan. Some of the funds transfer for admin cost went up a little, some went down a little, and I could check the sewer one for you in particular. That also may be a function of PAYGO, that we are not transferring any PAYGO to the capital projects this year for sewer. So that could have been a part of those prior year numbers.
We just had an elaborate discussion of the watershed restoration fund. The refuse fund, clearly the contract services are up, but there's a pretty big jump in the salaries and benefits, and that's the addition of the people that are picking up the city baskets rather than the
Correct.
residential baskets. Okay.
Yes.
So that makes sense. We also have a big increase in the fleet operating budget, and salaries and benefits look reasonable. So it's contract services are up, and supplies are up, other services, supplies and other. So just question of what's happening there, because we're going from 1.1 to 2.6 million dollars over the 3-year period.
Which one are you on?
We're on bottom of page 101, Fleet Operating Maintenance Fund.
Well, I would tell you that a couple things. Those two line items were not adequately funded in the past because a couple of transfers were.
What? Us
were
not give you enough money?
But secondly, is we're adding a lot more police cars, a lot more that we're going to have to
police
maintain.
cars,
So
yeah.
we budgeted for that.
Right, and there was, as he said, there was a $200,000 additional appropriation to this fund recently, which you don't see on page 101 yet. I did put it into my adjusted numbers recently, so if I give you a revised table, you would see it, which brings us up to an FY19 adjusted budget of $2 million. And the rest is they added a mechanic.
God help us.
Right?
Right.
Danny wanted another mechanic to help him with all the additional vehicles, plus they anticipate some more maintenance costs because of the new vehicles.
Okay. So, do you have any additional questions on
No,
the appeal?
no, I'm good with it.
Look, I think actually we've been going through your budget more thoroughly than anyone else's. That's because you have so many complicated moving parts, and there are some changes. I certainly want to emphasize that we appreciate all the work that Public Works does. I know we give you a hard time on stormwater management and a few things like that, but that's out of concern, not out of disrespect. It's out of love. So I thank you for the time and effort you put into the budget, and of course you too, Madam Finance Director. And I really do like the way you're going with the performance measures, and I will take your information, the verbiage that you had, and disseminate it with my blast email. I do think people need to know. And Public Works and Planning and Zoning probably come in for absolutely the most grief. And
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I think it's because we don't defend you, and that's part of our job. So, again, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for your thorough explanation of the budget today.
Thank you.
And I hope we get you home before the storm line.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Marcia, always good hearing from you.
She's the smart one.
Yes.
Did you have some materials to give us before we adjourn?
It's for transportation, which
Oh,
we've
okay.
delayed till Tuesday,
Okay.
so
All right.
we'll pass them out then.
It's going to be Wednesday. Mr. Gordon had meetings all day.
Okay, so
Oh,
Wednesday, all right.
Wednesday.
Transportation's going to be Wednesday. Rec and parking will be Tuesday.
Tuesday, all
Okay,
right.
Rec and Parks Tuesday,
We
transportation.
didn't get to Ellie's motion. Oh, no.
You have to push it hard, Mr. Tracy.
Here's what we have to look forward to.
Why don't we, let's look at that after we close up. Oh, God. Did you look at Alderwoman Tierney's amendment?
I just got it. I mean, I got it before the meeting, so no, I haven't.
So, Takia, why don't we put that on the agenda for Tuesday? We have a lot of closing up of votes on the departments that we need to get done so they can go into the report. And I agree with you. I haven't really had a chance to understand Ellie's amendment. We'll give her opportunity to explain that on Tuesday. And if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Again,